Good evening. I'm Tom Conrad, the Superintendent of Schools of the Nauset District, and welcome to Superintendent Spotlight, a program designed to introduce various members of the central office and eventually programs that we're working on for the entire district. This evening I have as my guest Jim Nowak. Jim, great to have you here.
Oh, thank you for having me.
And Jim is the Assistant Director of our Finance and Operations, and quite honestly, he has his hands in lots of projects at our office. So Jim, how did you get to Nauset?
It's a long story. I was in public accounting in Connecticut. I was a CPA down there for a number of years, and I used to lifeguard out here for the seashore, and always wanted to come back. So my wife always wanted to come here too. So we found a spot and came up.
Were you originally from Connecticut?
Yes, Connecticut.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And vacationed here, and like many of us?
Vacationed here and worked here in the summer. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it drew you to want to be here permanently.
That's it.
That's great.
Moved my family up here, then 2 kids, now 3 kids.
Yeah.
So it's great.
Well, it's excellent, Jim. And so what we're going to try and do is give the viewers some idea of what you're involved with, what some of your responsibilities are, and so forth, so they better understand what happens at what we know as central office.
Okay.
The group that oversees the entire operation of all of our schools, the elementaries, the middle school, and the regional high school as well. Now, I know that you've been working on, through our capital subcommittee and so forth, a application for renovations to our regional high school here at, of course, Nauset Regional High School. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that effort and where we're at and so forth?
Okay. It started out a couple years ago, we had a asset facility study done for all the buildings here at Nauset. And over the years it decided there was so much work needed to be done here at the high school. We were going to decide to package it, and we applied to Mass School Building Authority, whose only function is to fund school projects. So school renovation projects. They get their money from 1% of the sales tax. That's how they're funded. Okay, and then we apply for a statement of interest. We put down all our issues, both physical and educational issues here in the school, send it to them. They're going to review it, come back, let us know if we're in or not. Could take many times to apply. You don't automatically get it. It's very competitive. About 10% get in the first time, the first application. And then we start working from there. We get engineers in here, architects in here, design what we need, see what needs really fixing, and we work with our engineers and architects and MSBA, that Mass School Building Authority, to come up with a plan that's right for Nauset and right for them. And they reimburse us with a grant, 37.5% about.
So what really brought this about was, of course, the age of the campus.
Yes, 43 years old, used lovingly for 43 years. We've had some renovations in the past, but you know, when you have 1,000 students in here every day, plus staff, walking all over, and really, they use it. They use it well.
The uniqueness of this high school, of course, is that our kids pass outside in a campus style. And when you look at the wear and tear of the buildings, I often tell people, envision 1,000 students coming through your living room every 85 minutes, and its impact on floors and the overall condition of the buildings, classrooms and so forth. And we've had a couple of renovation projects at this point in the history of the school. The first being almost $10 million when we put in-building on. And most recently, we had a second renovation project as well, didn't we?
Yes, recently we put on a roof and windows, new roof and windows. So we fixed the envelope of our building to keep the water out from infiltrating and doing other damage. And that was done 2 years ago. I guess 2 years ago now.
Yeah.
And I wasn't in that one at the beginning. I did finish it.
Right.
You know,
and that kind of led to this whole discussion about the life expectancy of this campus as well, didn't it? And the state came in during that process, looking at the structures and their age, And it was determined that we could move forward with at least 20 more years of this campus being in operation for public education.
Yeah, that's part of the MSBA's funding mechanism. They're not going to fund it if you're not going to keep a school open, period. So if they think it's falling apart, they're not going to say, no, we're going to, they're going to say no to a new roof. You just say, you need a whole new school. So they funded the roof and the windows, and now we're applying for a major renovation of most other aspects of the school.
So in that project, because at times we worked together on that project, we took care of all of the roofs on the campus and all of the windows. And the windows were brought up to code from a hurricane standpoint. And so when you kind of look at the concept of the envelope of a building, we really have 2/3 of it completed for the future. And there's been discussion with our capital on the cedar siding. But we know that behind that cedar siding is concrete walls, which we don't have any penetration of water at this point. So waiting a little bit longer to get that siding replaced is reasonable at this time. So that leads us to where we started this discussion. We've made the application to the state relative to seeing if we would be a viable candidate. When do we find out about that, Jim? And what's the process for that?
All right. We filed it back in April. Okay. The state's still reviewing it, and we're going to find out mid-January if they're going to accept us in or not.
And you were heavily involved in that application, weren't you?
Yes.
Let the viewers know the sort of work that went into just it isn't like it's a one-page application.
Oh, no. It was probably at least 20 or 30 pages, and I had to meet with all the stakeholders. I had to come here to the school. I met with the principal, the time you.
Yeah, that's right.
I met with a lot of staff members. I met with your head of maintenance. We walked the building. We went through all its issues. And then I had to meet with the educator piece too, which was harder for me because I'm a numbers person. So I had to find out, about the size, adequate space for the school. How are the classrooms filled? And I found out, looking at MSBA's, we're not considered overcrowded, but we're pretty close. I mean, we're at capacity easily. So, all those go into it. So.
The interesting thing is that as I've come in this new job, I've been looking at an entry plan, and one of the concerns that I've heard from citizens and town officials and so forth is the idea of declining enrollments and in some cases rising budgets. And that's not the case on this campus, though. We were projecting 950 students and opened with 981. We saw an increase of 31 students for this school. So we've stayed close to our maximum, and that's a factor that we hope the state takes into consideration with some of the teaching spaces we have currently in use relative to possibly wanting to do some other things, right?
Yes, so as far as renovation goes. I mean, I know here at the high school we've converted some of our locker spaces in the buildings into small classrooms. It's in effect, we're in a tight spot. We used what we have, but it's not a perfect match. So we could really use some more classroom space. Same with our library. Libraries, they don't even fund libraries through MSBA anymore. They'll fund the media center. So, which is basically a library on computers. Everything's on your computer. So why use all that space to store the books and things? So they're looking at major media centers coming in. So it's a really, it's not new, but it's going to be new for us.
Right. So this is a big responsibility for you for us. I mean, you oversee much of the paperwork and the connections with the state on this.
Yeah, I'm in constant contact with the state. We go back and forth, and it's a long process. Even if we get accepted in January, we're not looking to break ground for another 3-4 years on anything. So.
We've had conversations with town officials. and town leaders relative to our, at least making the application. And our capital subcommittee has been working on this. We've actually approved a plan going forward of at least having some ballpark numbers for discussion purposes, haven't we?
Yes, we have. And it's really hard to come up with a number when all of your engineering and architect, haven't had a say yet. So we took our plan. We a plan that was done 2 years ago. That was a needs analysis.
A needs analysis
all
of the
visual
program.
of the physical aspects of the building: HVAC, electrical, mechanical. All of those things. And so that was a starting point. That's all it was, with rough numbers. So now we tried to project. We looked at prior MSBA projects and their average cost per square footage for renovations, new buildings, renovations, and just plain repairs. And we tried to come up with our best guess at this point.
And you've been responsible for that. I mean, you've done all the research relative to the new projects in the state and renovation projects and so forth, and tried to draw some conclusions about what's a reasonable number to at least begin thinking about from a square footage standpoint.
Yes, and that was, a lot of it was on MSBA's website, their prior projects, and just download it, put it into an Excel spreadsheet and start looking at averages and things like that to come up with it.
And so it's an educated guess of what the range will be relative to a project like this. You've obviously done some homework in terms of you're working with the staff here at the high school. There's no secret, for instance, that the vast amount of plumbing in this building is the original plumbing. And that in itself is a frightening thought.
It is, especially when most of your plumbing is running through your concrete walls, in the middle of these walls. So it's going to be very interesting to see how they propose to change some of that plumbing, because it is going to be new. We have issues now. Things just break and explode. We have flooding. Sometimes just do a simple plumbing repair right now, we have to shut the whole water off the entire building because most of the valves inside the building aren't functional anymore.
Right.
They're just open.
So that's a hard number to nail down when you're trying to work with the state, hopefully in the future. The other piece of it is, of course, is that we don't know when we're going to be selected.
Correct.
This is a competitive process, isn't it?
It sure is. And the state, they do it mostly on need first, and how it's affecting the educational impact. How's it impacting the education in the building? So they like us because we keep up our buildings. They're clean, we try and maintain them. So that aspect is good for us. If we were just ignoring our buildings, they would say, you take care of your own mess.
Gotcha.
So because we do it, and we do have the student population here, that's another big factor.
So the key is, if I'm hearing you right, is that we'll get some word mid-January. Let's take both scenarios, make sure the viewers understand. If the state does not select us in this round of schools, what do we do at that point?
Oh, at that point, we're going to pull my old statement of interest out, we're going to update it, and resubmit it this April.
So we're going to go right back into the pool,
Yep.
and that would wait until the following January again. So that's if we're not in the choice. If we are chosen, what happens?
If we're chosen, we go right away to doing a request for qualifications for an engineering firm. Oh, first it's the OPM, our project manager, we're going to bring on first. And then they'll help us do a request for qualifications for a qualified engineer to write up the plans. So we're going to have some professionals right away to help us with this and to move forward. And that gets us, when we get them on board, we meet with MSBA, and then we move forward with our schematic design of the building to decide what we're going to do in here.
Right.
And then that'll lead us to a better estimate on what it's going to cost us.
I mean, that's the sort of thing I would think that all the stakeholders will absolutely be invited into that process.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to have to form once we're accepted, a committee, a building committee.
Yeah.
To
so we'd form a building committee, and obviously the entire staff on the campus would have an opportunity to give input into the process.
I would want to meet with the engineer and the OPM. I would want to meet with the different staff members, even the heads of all the departments, and see what their specific needs are.
Right.
So that it can all try and be addressed.
Because
at one time.
Quite honestly, the challenge of the staff is planning ahead, and really the state sees this as a 20-year program that they've committed to from a building standpoint. We need to make the adjustments that our graduates will need as we go forward in the next 20.
Right, and in 20 years, you know, it's who's going to see 20 years out? You look back 20 years, and computers were just there on the horizon.
Yeah.
Now they're everywhere, and who knows where we're going to be in another 20
Sure.
years.
It was interesting, though, that your point of the state not being interested in libraries per se, but the media centers, and obviously we've seen that shift anyways happening for a number of years. And there's also an opportunity to possibly look at other spaces that haven't worked for us that we want to recreate with a new facility possibly, aren't there?
Yeah, we looked at, one of the big ones that came up was the auditorium our auditorium here at the high school is very lacking. The size, it's just the amount of use it gets between our drama programs, our music programs. So it's undersized for campus this size.
The interesting piece for the viewers to understand is Allison Bevan, our former choral director, and Tom Ferris, our current choral director, but also in instructional, instrumental work and so forth, was very, very interested in looking at improving the acoustics and the sight lines. And we actually can't get the entire concert band on the stage.
Right.
We've actually had to have extenders and take rows of seats out to make that happen. It's really put us in a position to move sometimes our own home concerts down to the middle school. And so that's a really, really interesting area for us to look at, isn't it?
It is. If we built or added a new performing arts center, create a new performing arts center, and they talked about our existing library area, and then moving the library area over to renovating the auditorium into a new media center, you might be able to get enough classroom space over there, additional classroom space and things, and here expanding the performing arts center just by adding the stage and seating area off the library and converting the library into a lot of the performing arts classrooms and things.
Right.
And other classrooms that we could probably get additional classroom space, the performing center we need with minimal expansion of the campus.
Right.
So
that's
maximizing our current square footage.
That's where the experts come in.
Correct.
It? And I mean, we're
tell us what is possible, what isn't possible.
right. I mean, lay people like myself trying to make these decisions is best in the hands of our potential engineers and things like that.
Right.
So while that's just one facet of your job.
Correct.
But a big facet, and this is a major initiative for this campus for the next 20 years, and depending upon its timing, it seems as though that our board is interested in not looking at a brand new campus, but renovate what we have.
Right, right, and they had that vision since we did the roof and the windows. They were not looking to replace the whole school. They were looking to renovate.
Yeah, I mean, so I've heard some numbers of anywhere from 140 to 200 million if you were to simply see this campus disappear and recreate it in a new, as new structures and so forth.
Looking at the MSBA numbers and the schools they've put up recently, yes, we're even just to put in our same footprint would probably be $100 to $120 million easily.
Yeah, so for the viewers to understand that the district has obviously taken the opinion that it has no interest in building a new facility. Its focus and only focus is renovating our existing buildings and so forth. If that's a big piece for you, but it's all tied in with capital, isn't it? And you also have other responsibilities with capital, and so why don't you talk a little bit about some of that work?
I'm responsible for all our capital planning that's done here in all our buildings, including the elementary schools, because we're also the central office for our 5 elementary schools in the 4 towns. So with that, I have to meet with the head custodians every year and redo their plans. We've had some other facility studies done in the elementary schools, and that's an annual thing to update it, come forward with it, and it's hard. I will take most of the large programs from beginning to end, like this MSBA project. I put the roof on the middle school, roof on Wellfleet Elementary School. Currently working with MSBA on the windows and doors for Orleans Elementary. That's actually went out to bid, and we have a contractor probably today they'll be under contract. So which will be good, and that'll be done this summer.
Right.
So a lot of the smaller ones, the director takes care of the bulk of our capital projects once they're all planned and they're approved through a town meeting and everything. And that way, then she'll
So Giovanna oversees the actual work getting done, but you do all the planning behind the scenes. And these are a minimum of 5-year plans, aren't they?
Oh yeah, they're 5 years out. And the farther out you go, the more flexibility there is to them, because the best planning, they're buildings. You never know what's going to come up. So, and the towns understand that, and they are flexible with it if there's things that have to get reprioritized. And it seems to happen every year. Things have to be reprioritized. There's only so much in that bucket, so you do what you can.
And for the viewers to understand, we have both the middle school and the high school that work on their capital with the region school committee, and the elementaries work with their school committees, but answer to the towns.
Yes. Yeah.
So you're working with town officials all the time.
Yeah, I'm going to have to go. I'll be presenting the capital plans to the towns, usually to the selectmen and to the FinComs. Actually soon. We got them out to the towns early this year, which was great. They were appreciative, but now they're going to want updates. So we'll be going to see them.
So we've talked a lot about facilities, and that's a big responsibility that you have. I know you do some work with some of the accounting and overseeing of some student programs or accounts and so forth. Why don't you talk a little bit about that?
Okay.
I know you have some great passion for kids, because I know that your kids came through Nauset. And
yep, my 3 kids came through Nauset.
You were a volunteer in the swim meets and all of that.
Yeah. And before they were involved with swimming, I did help out with the high school swim team for a few years, which was a lot of fun. I wish I had the time to do more of that.
No, it's I don't know how you did it. Your day's so full.
It's a big time commitment. But on the financial side, yes, I'm responsible for keeping our books all the way across the board. That's for the region, middle school, high school, and the central office, and all the elementary schools. So there's a lot involved, because combined, it's probably over $50 million a year that comes through our office. Because there's the operating budgets for all the schools, and then we have revolving funds. And the revolving funds, we have over 80 revolving funds just for the region alone.
So the region, so the viewers can understand, what is a revolving fund?
A revolving fund isn't something that's voted, appropriated by the towns. Revolving funds are pretty much self-funded programs that run regularly, and they can be large, like the international students here at the high school. All those revenues that come in get put into a revolving fund, and it's part of our budgeting process the school committee can use that money, and are using it, actually currently they're using it mostly to fund the iPad programs, which is a great use of that money. Some of the others are the state requires, like our circuit breaker money, we get reimbursed for our special needs costs per student over, right now it's about $42,000, $43,000. They'll reimburse us almost 70 cents on the dollar over that amount, which is very substantial. I mean, the region alone gets over $500,000 this year from the state. And so that has to go into a revolving fund that can only be spent on special needs costs. So you have to watch some of those things. Our school choice, very robust. We'll get $1.6 million in this year. So, and that's used, the school committee generally use it to reduce our assessments. Basically use it as a revenue flow to reduce the assessments to the member towns. So,
And
that's good. And the smaller ones, there's driver's ed, there's community ed, it's a revolving fund. There's our gift accounts, building use when the buildings get rented. We keep it, and that money has to be used back towards the buildings to keep the infrastructure. And then there's a lot of the yearbook, all the sports teams have their own revolving funds, and all has to be kept separate. It all has to be kept.
And you have to stay up current with the changing rules and laws relative to, in this case, accounts and so forth. I know you're going off to some coursework the end of the week and so forth.
Right, yeah, it's a 3-day course I'll be taking, and it is on procurement. Again, another 3-day. It's my last one, and then I'll be a certified procurement officer. So
yeah, that's a lot of work.
Which is good. Yeah, it's a lot of work, and they give you a nice test at the end.
So Jim, in terms of, good luck with that test, by the way. But you have to do monthly statements on all this. This isn't just, I mean, we run a lot of money through
There's a lot of reporting, and that's one of my favorite parts, is because numbers, when people, they'll say, well, what about this? I think this is going badly, or it doesn't matter. With numbers, you record it the way it should be recorded, and good or bad, at the end of the month, that's what you report, because people have to make decisions on your numbers.
Right.
So you have to give them good information, whether they like it or not. It doesn't really matter, but you have to give them good numbers. And so at the end of the month, I mean, we have what we call our dashboard report, which myself, Giovanna, and our auditor at the time created. And it's a quick snapshot of where we stand. And it's broken down by how we budget our general funds, which are our operating budgets, our revolving funds, our grants, which we have 7 or 8 grants right now, which add up to almost $1.5 million, a little bit more. And then our trust funds, which is additional funds. You got to think of them almost like different divisions of our business. Like our trust funds are the things we hold in trust. Student activities are trust funds. The students raise the money, they spend the money, but we hold it in trust for them. So, and we have at the high school probably 12 different, probably 15 different student activities, clubs and things where the students are responsible for that money. They have an advisor, teacher advisor. At the middle school, there's probably another 15 or 20. Administration has to take a little more control of that because they are middle schoolers. So, and then we have 25 separate scholarships that we have to account for and keep separately, and we hold that in trust for the scholarships for their specific needs that are set up by the people who donated that.
Wow.
So
you had mentioned earlier in the show that it's over $50 million that we are responsible to be accountable for and on top of at all times. And you've touched upon millions and millions of dollars just through your office, and obviously monthly statements and reports to town officials and so forth. And on top of the building project that we were talking about for the potential high school renovation and things like that. So you're a busy man for us, Jim, and I know that you're in your office early and stay late for us. And to the viewers, I want you to know that Jim is attending lots of meetings both at the town level and region level. and doing a great job for us. And I hope this show tonight, although at times the material can be a bit dry, gives you some insight into exactly what's going on at our central office, something that I think the vast majority of our communities had no idea. And Jim, I want to thank you for being here tonight. And to our viewers, I hope you learned a little bit more about what's happening at the superintendent's building. Thank you, and good night.